Yeah, welcome into the Monday edition of Robbie and Rex Road, 1025, 1063 The Game. Hope everybody's had an outstanding weekend. Robbie Stanley, Nick Keyser here with you on this Monday morning. Joe Rexroad will be along shortly. And what a weekend it was. What a lot we've got to get into today here on the program. Corey Curtis from News 2 will join us at 8 o'clock. We'll get into divisional weekend with him, continue the conversation on the Titans coaching search as well. There's a whole lot that went on and that's happened this weekend in the world of the NFL and with the Titans coaching search. So looking forward to getting that discussed with Corey Curtis from News 2 a little bit later in the show, coming up at 8 o'clock. We'll take your thoughts as we always do all show long. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Joe Rexroad, good morning. How are you?
Yeah, I'm fine. Sorry. I've been weeping tears of joy for, like 10 straight hours or whatever. I was just holding myself a little bit longer before composing myself for the show. So sorry about that, everybody.
Well, what a day it was yesterday for little Joey Rexroad. I mean, I had an immediate text from my father after the game was over that I shared with you just about the excitement level of little Joey Rexroad as the Lions pulled it off yesterday. The Lions in the NFC title game. It's a weird sentence to throw out there, Joe, but it's now reality after they took down the Tampa Bay Buccaneers yesterday. What a performance by the Detroit Lions.
God, your dad is so right, too. Little parachute pants throwing the ball to myself. Touchdown! Eric Hipple to Lawrence Thompson. Yeah. That was a funny one. I got a lot of texts yesterday.
I bet you did.
A lot of people give me a lot of crap, mostly, but good for the Lions. And actually, Nick's thing that he just sent us this morning is pretty fantastic. NFL memes, the two dudes just losing themselves laughing over the fact that the Lions have more NFC Championship appearances this century than the Cowboys. Now, that is funny.
That's pretty wild to think about. Nick Keyser, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great. Yeah, I figured I would try to meme it up with y'all this weekend, especially after that Packers game, which I know we will talk everything about, I'm sure, right, Robbie?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Really, really enjoyed every second of that. It was
Thanks
awesome.
for bringing that up.
Yeah.
Might as well just
Real
get it out of the way now,
Yeah, it was real great. Really enjoyed it.
I expect the whole show to be on that, mostly.
That one was not as much of a punch to the face as 2021. I guess it would have technically been 2022, which, by the way, I guess today is the 2-year anniversary of both the Packers screwing it up at home against the 49ers when they had Aaron Rodgers as the number 1 seed, and also the Titans and the Bengals 2 years ago today of that debacle at Nissan Stadium. What a time, Joe.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah. I mean, seriously. Tannehill against the Bengals, that game was 2 years ago. Doesn't it feel like about 7?
It really does.
Or 9? 2 years ago. That is really amazing.
A lot has happened. A whole lot has happened, and many people that were employed by the Titans at that point still don't have their jobs this time around. So there's a whole lot that went down there. So the 49ers take down the Packers. Baltimore has an incredible second half and dominates Houston. So the 2-1 seeds on Saturday get the win. And then yesterday, Tampa tries to mount a comeback against Detroit. They fall short. Baker Mayfield throws an interception on their last drive. The Lions win by 8. And then last night, really an awesome game between Buffalo and Kansas City, a back and forth game. And Joe, it did kind of feel like Kansas City the week before had figured out some things offensively, and it looked that way again last night. Pacheco looked great. Mahomes looked great. Travis Kelce with 2 touchdowns. And in the end, Buffalo misses a kick wide right where the jokes write themselves, and they lose at home to the Kansas City Chiefs once again.
Yeah, speaking of weeping myself to sleep, boy, some of those Bills fans' sites were wild. I'll tell you what, man. Another thing about that game, I gotta say, for the first time ever, I'm really annoyed by someone who's rooting for Travis Kelce in the crowd. My goodness, making just an absolute spectacle of themselves. Let me tell you what. That was, the thing is, like the Chiefs, if you're a Chiefs fan, I guess if you're a Chiefs fan, so much good stuff has happened to you that you just, maybe you don't think this way, but when you had the fumble out of the end zone,
yep,
and then you had a fumble to just jump on and you tried to pick it up. and didn't get it, I'm like, oh my gosh, they're gonna totally blow this. But it was the Bills who blew it. But that game was, and I know maybe the finish wasn't, it didn't come to, it wasn't like a couple years ago where 13 seconds left and the Chiefs somehow go down the field, right? But that was an epic playoff game.
We saw a pretty good example this weekend, Joe, of why, field goal kicking is important. And Tyler Bass, I mean, look, he's a good kicker, but he misses the kick wide right that would have tied the game against Kansas City, which again, I mean, the amount of Scott Norwood references after that happened last night was unbelievable to sit there and watch that happen. And then Andrews Carlson of the Packers, who's been terrible all year and decided to be terrible again in a wrong moment, misses one for the Packers. And that ended up, as soon as he missed that field goal, Joe, I was like, my God, that's going to be it. That's going to be the difference in the game. And sure enough, it was. Packers lose by 3.
Yeah, I guess I didn't realize the severity of his struggles this year until I didn't realize like he'd missed 6 extra points. Feels like maybe they could have, gotten someone else at some point, huh?
Well, I mean, they had Mason Crosby for the last 15 years.
He was good.
I will say, like, Carlson booted a couple this year from like 57, which Mason Crosby is not going to do, which is why they made the move, right? Like, Crosby's nearly 40 years old. So that's why they made the move. But when you can't make extra points, that's a problem. And I know extra points are not automatic like they used to be, but 6 of them's a lot.
Yeah,
that's a whole lot of misses.
Yeah, 1 or 2, that's fine. You can expect that. 6 is that's an issue. And yeah, I know we'll talk more about that, but that was, there are a lot of parts of that game where the Packers could have made it easy on themselves. I mean, you got 2 picks. One of them is a pick 6
for sure
if you catch it. And so I did see among your angry tweets after that game, I know it was like, actually I think it was our David Lombardi. It was like, Brock Purdy proves himself or whatever. It's like, yeah, I mean, Purdy made a few throws on that last drive, but I would not call that game like the cementer of Brock Purdy, the amazing NFL QB. I think if anything, that game probably fed the haters. I mean, he's good, but like, he's not MVP good.
Well, look, I like Brock Purdy. I think he's a good player, but that game was not a Brock Purdy, oh my goodness, look how good Brock Purdy is game. I mean, he missed, I don't know what, 5 passes, like missed 5 guys that were wide open. He threw a couple of them that should have been picks, like you said. Hey, look, I thought Jordan Love played well until he didn't, if that makes any sense, right? Like, he started missing some throws. The Zach Tom loss at right tackle was huge because Zach Tom has been their best offensive lineman all year, and he was doing a great job basically for a lot of the games, singled up on Nick Bosa. And when he left the game with a concussion, all of a sudden they started to get a little bit more pressure back there. It was just a lot of things that went wrong. And, Jordan Love made a couple of throws that you just can't make, right? Like the first pick, he misses Kraft high. And then on the last drive, trying to play a little bit of hero ball coming across the middle there. And you just, in that situation, you got to either run out of bounds or throw that ball out of bounds. And you couldn't do it. So like I said, I mean, it was a gut punch. I was not over it for a couple hours on Saturday night, so I started yelling at you on Twitter. But again, it was not as much of a gut punch as it was 2 years ago because the future is bright in Green Bay. That's what I keep telling myself.
Well, it is. And that's the thing. It's just a couple. Well, so we had one of those misses over the middle was just a little bit late, right? Late and behind him.
Yeah.
And both of them were big plays. I think one of them would have converted, right? And then the one of them turned into a pick on a tip ball. And then the last one was a bad decision. But it is bright. I mean, that's like, as you've said a few times, that's one of the youngest, or that's the youngest team, or the youngest team in the NFL overall.
They're the youngest team in the NFL.
Yeah. So, I mean, I gotta say, the NFC North moving forward, because the lines are good, and then the Bears are gonna do something here, at the top of the draft, and probably gonna be pretty freaking interesting. So, that division looks really tough moving forward. But it's also, look, you just don't. There's no guarantee of this opportunity or that opportunity, and they were right there to beat the Niners. Now the Niners may now, they may now wake up and be, you know, more like the Niners moving forward. Although I guess Debo Samuel, we'll see with his injury.
And then there's the Baltimore part of this that like nobody's going to talk about today, Joe, because of the other games that went down. But Baltimore continues to look dominant. It was tied at halftime, and it was like, okay, look at Houston. They brought like a punt back for a touchdown. Like, all right, the Texans are hanging in there, and let's see if they can go pull off the upset. And then Lamar Jackson just played great in the second half. 2 touchdowns through the air, 2 touchdowns on the ground. And Baltimore looks every bit as dominant as they look to end the regular season. And I know it's Kansas City. I know it's Patrick Mahomes, so you can never count them out. But that's going to be a tough place for Kansas City to go into and win if Baltimore plays the way they played really all year long, but especially the last month of the season.
It is, man. It's a fascinating game because the Chiefs really they finally look like they've got a lot of things figured out offensively. Now the Bills did a lot of damage to their D, and it's the same in a way, kind of the same kind of challenge, right? Like, I mean, Josh Allen sees a seam and he's gone, and it's the same thing with Lamar Jackson this week. So I agree. I mean, when Baltimore has it all cranked up, we just saw them at San Francisco a few weeks ago. They're the best team, but I also still think there's something to the mystique and the experience of what the Chiefs have done. So, I mean, I think hopefully we'll have two really good games here.
Chuck on the text lines, driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com, says, tuning in to see if Joe is singing I'm a Believer.
Hey, tip of the cap, Chuck, to to the Lions, to the kneecap biter, to all the Lions fans. I mean, you gotta tip your cap because they could have felt the pressure. Bake Show was cooking a little bit yesterday.
He
Now, of
was.
course, he's also good for a head scratcher here and there, like the last pick. My goodness, what are you doing? But
Not very good.
But hey, I absolutely I was wrong about the Lions. I was wrong, and they are good, and they are overcoming a lot of things that you have to overcome to win football games in that organization. So good for them.
Up, and they have now made the Final Four. We'll get more of Joe's perspective on the Lions' big win yesterday. And I'll also throw the question out there. Is there anybody in the NFL at the head coaching position that can manage a freaking clock? We'll get into that coming up next, too. This is Robbie and Rex Road, 1025, 1063, The Game. Welcome back in, Robbie and Rex Road, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Monday morning. Taking your thoughts on divisional weekend in the NFL. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Robbie and Rexrode, proudly sponsored by Chuck McDowell and Medical House Calls, Middle Tennessee's best medical care in the comfort and safety of your own home. For more information, go to medicalhousecalls.com. Medical House Calls, where the nearest clinic is your home. So the Lions take down the Bucs yesterday and cover the spread too, by the way. So that's a nice lock you could chalk up for Robbie Stanley in Pigskin Pick'em. Really enjoyed that.
Pigskin Pick'em's gotten good.
Pigskin Pick'em has gotten good. So it's coming down to the wire in that competition. It was cool though, Joe. Look, I think it's pretty clear that the final four teams that are left, America by far is rooting for the Lions. I would rank them Lions 1, probably Ravens 2, 49ers 3, and Chiefs 4 in terms of like America's rooting interest right now. But it was cool to watch that game unfold again yesterday. And in the aftermath of it, it didn't feel like anybody was leaving at Ford Field as they were walking off the field yesterday. And look, they're done at home now. They're going to have to go on the road to take on San Francisco. But that's a big win. And look, I know San Francisco ended up pulling it off. They did not look great on Saturday against the Packers. I think Detroit's got a legitimate shot to go on the road and win this game. They're not going to be the favorite, at least I don't think, but they've got a legitimate shot, I think, to go on the road and get this win.
Yeah, I think they have a shot. Their offense is really good. And so, I mean, if they can protect Goff, look, Goff is, to me, top of the list of, and I think the numbers back this up. And I don't have them in front of me, but I rely on others for my underlying stats. But I've seen it not long ago where, like under pressure, not under pressure. Clean pocket, I think Goff's as good as anybody. He'll fire it around the yard. He's got great receivers. He's got great backs. I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs is electric.
Yeah.
Muddy pocket, yeah, he's almost a child, So, but look, I think offensively, their offense can absolutely do damage. Their defense is not good. I mean, it really isn't good. They make some plays. They got some guys who make some plays. Their secondary is. I mean, look, I love Cam Sutton, great dude, great Vol, VFL.
Oh yeah,
like that's their best corner. Okay,
right.
So I mean, Mike Evans was like, "Oh, that's their best corner." Yes, sign me up for this game. So I mean, it's like the offenses have the advantage, but. Yeah, I'm with you. They have a chance. They got momentum. They got the a lot of the country rooting for them. Did the Niners kind of wake up from last performance? Were they rusty or whatever? I don't know. I mean, I think that's dismissing the Packers a little bit. Packers are good right now. Packers are playing good football and had a chance to make a run too. So, but I think it's got a chance to be good, and hopefully, like I said, both of them will be.
By the way, the early lines on the game, Ravens are favored by 3.5 at home against Kansas City in the AFC title game. And then San Francisco favored by a touchdown at home against Detroit, which is a little bit more than I thought. I'll be honest with you. I thought you were looking at probably 5.5 somewhere in that neighborhood, but
that's
7
so funny.
is the line.
I was going to say that exact thing. I would 5.5 is exactly what I would have popped there. So that'll be interesting to see where the money moves on that one for sure.
Yeah, no question about that. So at the end of that game, not that this makes the difference in them winning or losing, but I did notice it immediately, and now more and more people have started to talk about it. So first off, Baker Mayfield throws the horrendous interception, and Tampa's got one timeout left when that happens. And Detroit starts kneeling the ball down. And I noticed it on the second down snap, Joe. Jared Goff kneeled the ball down with like 17 seconds left on the play clock.
Right, too early.
And I was like, okay, what is he doing? All right. And then it's 3rd and 12, and they kneel the ball down again. And as soon as Goff takes a knee, there's 37 seconds left on the clock. And I'm screaming at the television, call a timeout. What are you doing? Tampa's got one timeout left. If they call the timeout there's 35 seconds, 34, whatever it is. There's 35 seconds left on the clock. And then it's 4th down for Detroit, which means that when it's 4th down, if they run the ball or they take a knee, the clock immediately stops because it's a turnover on downs. And yet Tampa didn't do anything. Like, they didn't call a timeout. They just let the clock run out. And look, I get it. Like, were the odds great if they called the timeout there that they were going to, Detroit was in field goal range too. So were the odds great that Detroit would either miss the field goal or go for it on fourth down, not get it, and then Tampa turns around and gets the ball and has to drive the length of the field with 20-something seconds left and no timeouts? Are those good odds? No. But it was amazing to me that they didn't even try to do it. And then the argument that you and I got into on Saturday night at the end of the Packers game, Brock Purdy runs the ball down to the 6-yard line, makes it 2nd and 1. There's like a minute and I don't know, 53, 54, something like that left when he hits the ground. Packers decide not to take the timeout. San Francisco runs the ball the next play. They run the play clock all the way down, and then Christian McCaffrey ends up in the end zone. So instead of burning a timeout there and having 2 timeouts left with, like, I don't know, a minute 45 or whatever it would have been, Packers let the whole clock go down. They've got all 3 of their timeouts left, but 40 seconds go off the clock. And I was screaming at my television at that too. So a couple of clock management decisions this weekend, Joe, where I was looking around and I was like, what in the heck is going on around here? I know you and I are in disagreement about the last one.
So the first one I didn't even notice. I mean, I didn't notice at the time because the math was it was over. Right. The math, if you take it down to the end of the play clocks, it's over. Right. So I guess like it's just the Bucs had conceded. Sometimes you see at the end of a basketball game, in theory, it's like, you're down 4, you could never know, and you just let them go. But then later people started talking about it, on social media. I'm like, oh my God, why the heck didn't they take a timeout? And what are the Lions doing? The Lions, I mean,
it was wild.
That was insane. Okay, so our
argument could have set up to be an all-time Lions moment, by the way, if
things
would have transpired.
Like a punt return for a touchdown.
Yes.
Now, as far as our argument, okay. Now I know you were upset after the game, and again, I'm not saying calling a timeout would have been wrong, but you still think that my argument is moon landing is fake?
It's not moon landing is fake, okay. But to me, it's about odds when you get down there, right? So it's 2nd and 1, and they've got the ball on the 6. It's one thing if they've got the ball on the 20, but they've got the ball on the 6. So when you got the ball inside the 10, I think if you're the other team, you got to start thinking about the clock. And it's like, okay, well, the 2-minute warning's passed. They've got the ball on the 6. The odds would tell you they're going to score a touchdown. So you got to leave yourself as much time as possible to drive down the field. And whether that's kick a field goal or leave yourself as good as their offense was humming last night or Saturday and moving the ball, like a chance to go win the game. And in my opinion, the 40 seconds that you let run off the clock is more valuable than the timeout that you saved at that point when you're playing the odds and San Francisco is already that close to the goal line. I know the argument is, well, what happens on the next play if they get the first down and they don't score, and then you start burning timeouts? But the other part of that is, like, San Francisco still has to score to take the lead. And if it gets down to like 3rd down and they hadn't scored yet, my guess is they're probably not worried about the clock anymore. They're trying to get in the end zone and make sure they score.
Well, I agree.
Go ahead.
Yeah. No, you're right. But the thing is, so if you pop the time, it's just terrible. You're in a bind. I mean, I'm assuming LaFleur is talking to his analytics people that time, right? And I'm not against popping it right there. If it was like 3rd and 4 instead of 3rd and 1, I'd have felt a lot better about popping it, because 3rd and 1, now if they get it, now there's one gone. Now you call another, and they haven't even run first down. So they can call. Yeah, you're right. They still have to score. I mean, you're trying to stop them they have to score a touchdown. But if I'm the Niners, I'm at least calling one more run play to get their timeouts bled out. And then maybe I'm at the 3. And frankly, I'd probably call another one, and we'll see if they get in or not, But if they don't, now if they do end up scoring, and you're right, by 3rd and 4th down, if you get into that, they're probably going to be throwing. But now you're well under a minute with no timeouts if it gets to that scenario. I don't know what the probabilities of, but obviously if you knew they were going to score a touchdown on 3rd and 1, then yes, give me those 40 seconds back. I'll take 2 timeouts. You don't know, right? It was a tough bind to be in, but I think it's arguable both ways. In fact, I'd love to see. I mean, shoot, ESPN Stats and Info gives us probability of win. I'd love to see all how the percentages line up on that. I bet you it's pretty close. Maybe I'm wrong, but I bet you it's pretty close.
What are your thoughts on the, hey, let's go ahead and go for 2 points like the Tampa Bay Bucks did yesterday, not get it, and then give yourself a chance if you score a touchdown to go try the 2-pointer again? I mean, the idea, right, is what the Titans did against Miami, where you're
Right.
down by 2 scores, you get the 2-pointer, and if you get the other touchdown, you could just kick the extra point and win. But a lot of former players, current players, not on board with that idea, according to social media yesterday. What do you think of that?
I mean, I'm an old fogey who's just like, I mean, to me, it's like if you are a team that's overmatched and it's like, you're trying to steal one and you don't want anything to do with overtime, then I guess like the Titans doing it, that's a game they should have lost, you know, like convincingly based on how those teams have performed this year. I don't like it. That's just me. But analytics, that's what the analytics team. Although one member of the Titans analytics team did not like it either, by the way.
Apparently
But
not.
then people got all mad at that, and I'm like, I just can't get mad at someone for just kicking an extra point and saying, okay, now we need a touchdown to tie. I guess to me, it's like I would prefer, just kick the extra point, and if you feel like that, then go for two if you actually do get to the touchdown later.
Yeah.
Like we see that sometimes. I don't know. I don't like it. I'll continue to be, old pawpaw not liking it, but I mean, it's pretty much, becoming the norm.
Yeah, it really is. Ty on the text line says, that's it for the Lions. Joe said he was wrong about them and they're good. Niners by 20. This from Ty on the text line. The kiss of death from Rex Road.
To be fair, I've said many times like the Lions are pretty good. They are good. I mean, they have a great offense. I've been saying that forever. I mean, I continue to think their defense stinks, but yeah,
Will the Titans hire their defensive coordinator to be their head coach? We'll have to wait and see.
well, there's that, then there's their offensive coordinator.
There is their offensive coordinator, which is creating a really interesting situation. And I've thought about certain things that have transpired with Ben Johnson, and one thing in particular that hasn't transpired that has me scratching my head a little bit. We'll get into that coming up next. 615-737-1025, our phone number, 615-737-1025. Tune in later this morning at 8:45 for your chance to participate in Preds Pick to Click. And win a pair of tickets to an upcoming Preds home game. Pick to Click brought to you by TJ Anderson Homes of Benchmark Realty. List your home with TJ to get your home seen, heard, and sold. You're listening to Robbie and Rex Road, 1025, 1063, The Game. Welcome back in, Robbie and Rex Road, 1025, 1063 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rex Road, Nick Keys are here with you on this Monday morning, taking your thoughts, 615-737-1025. We're live from our Spring Hill Heating and Cooling Game Nashville studios, keeping your home feeling comfortable all year round. So, Joe, a very popular name in the Titans head coaching search, at least from fans, is Ben Johnson of the Detroit Lions. And Ben Johnson, a very hot head coaching candidate list, or maybe the hottest name on the head coaching list out there that's not named a Jim Harbaugh or a Bill Belichick in terms of just the fan part of this. He's already interviewed with the Panthers and the Commanders. He's now interviewed over the weekend with the Seahawks, the Chargers, and late last night with the Falcons as well. So there's one team he's not interviewed with who has requested permission to interview with him, and that is the Tennessee Titans. So I guess this could happen at some point this week if either Ben Johnson carves out some time or maybe the Titans have been late getting to him. I don't know. But it tells me, Joe, that maybe the priority from Ben Johnson does not reside with the Tennessee Titans. How do you read the Ben Johnson situation where he's interviewed with everybody who's requested him at this point, except you, if you're the Titans?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I sense a lack of interest, at least on one side or the other, I guess. But if the Titans requested to interview him, then I would think there'd be interest on their part. It's also, I mean, I certainly could be forgetting something, maybe many things, but I don't remember a coach getting requested like this, assistant on an NFL team requested and then saying, nah, I'm good. Maybe it's happened before. So yeah, it's a weird situation. I mean, I suppose, again, it could be either side in theory. Maybe saying, yeah, maybe that. But I just don't understand. If you're Titans, requesting it makes sense, and wanting to actually interview him, even if you think you know who you want and it's not him. I mean, they've cast a wide net. Why would you not want to talk to the guy who, like you said, I think is the most appealing, most momentum, established head coach in the coaching cycle. So talking to him, it could be instructional, educational, or whatever, helpful in some way, even if it leads to nothing, even if you have multiple people ahead of him and maybe he has you dead last on his list. I still think the interview has value. So I don't really understand that. Maybe I'll see if, I'm sure this will be top of mind this week. Maybe I'll see if some of my Lions media, Detroit media people will ask him, why are you not interviewing with the Titans? I'm sure he'd love that question this week.
Yeah, see if they can't get to the bottom of that. Well, I mean, look, it made me think of some of the conversations we had last week, right? I mean, Charles Robinson comes on our show and talks about the attractiveness of this Titans job and how much damage did the Vrabel situation and the way that was handled by Amy Adams Strunk and ownership, how much damage did that do? How do people view the roster? How do people view Will Levis? And look, I mean, the natural connection to me, Joe, is like if Ben Johnson gets through this and he's not even interested in sitting down for an interview with your team, I mean, that's pretty weird. Like that doesn't speak well of his opinion of your franchise. Not that one person's opinion your franchise is the be all end all. I mean, they're apparently interviewing Brian Callahan again today. So the second interview with Callahan is apparently taking place again today if you're the Titans. And they interviewed David Shaw last night, which great timing on that tweet. It was like the middle of the game between the Bills and the Chiefs. And there's like, by the way, the Titans have completed an interview with former Stanford head coach David Shaw. But I thought about last week in the conversation we had with Charles, like, to me, if Ben Johnson doesn't even want to sit down with you, that's pretty weird. And I think a lot of people view that as, what does that say about the Titans if he doesn't want to do that?
Well, we've talked a lot about the Titans and ownership and how people view them. And I think fairly critical of Amy Adams Strunk and decisions she's made and all that stuff. They deserve the crap they've gotten. But I think it would be very short-sighted of a guy in Ben Johnson's situation to not go interview a team that requested him. I think that would be, and again, it's like, I mean, you just have to do a Zoom. I mean, I saw something where it's like, Ben Johnson's got 3 interviews on Friday and he's got 2 more on Saturday. It's like, my gosh, this guy's trying to, win the one of the biggest games in franchise history right now, and he's totally preoccupied with this stuff. I just don't. If it's him saying no thanks, then I think it's really short sighted. I think that's a mistake. His agent should be like, yeah, who knows? Any of these people could be somewhere else in 10 years. And now they have an issue with you because you did that, right? Like you don't
Right.
do it. It's like when you get fired from a job or whatever, you take the high road and thanks for the opportunity and you just keep your mouth shut. So, and again, if it's on the other side, I mean, how weird you requested him. What I did, it makes no sense to me that the Titans would be like, yeah, we're good. Why? Talk to him.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's just because you just don't know. I mean, again, it's kind of the same idea in general terms, like the Rooney Rule. The benefit, even though again people make a mockery of it and bypass it and all that stuff, there's still this. You get someone in front of people and you just don't know what's going to happen. You might hear things you never thought of before. You get blown away. That's how Mike Tomlin got the Steelers job, by the way. I mean, that's so I have the conversation. Either side deciding not to have the conversation, if that's how it goes, somebody's being stupid.
I agree, and I'm totally with you on the like. If it's Ben Johnson, I think it's short sighted on his part not to take the interview. If it's the Titans, it makes no sense. Like, why would you request an interview and then not follow through with the interview? Doesn't make any sense at that point. I have heard some people say over the weekend, Joe, like, okay, well, if it's Ben Johnson, like, why would he be interested in interviewing with Carolina and not be interested in interviewing with the Titans? And to me, the answer is pretty simple. David Tepper's worth a ton of money, and the money that you could get paid. Look, we've heard reports, right, of his agent asking for $15 million a year and then kind of walking it back. But to me, like the Carolina part of it, number one, I think there would have to be some level of belief in Bryce Young and the ability to flip that roster around. But number two, like it would be about the money, I think, too. Because I think David Tepper is going to pay somebody a ton of money to coach that team.
Yeah, no, yeah, that's right. I mean, he might set a new market for coaching. So I mean, that's the thing. A guy like Tepper, with all that's going on there, might have to do something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, I really would love to know what the heck is going on with this situation. I suppose there is the possibility that it's not happening because the Titans are on hire is imminent. Although, and I think we're gonna have Corey Curtis on, and I think he's right. So David Shaw was in person, right?
That is the report. Yes.
So you have to interview two minority candidates in person. So he's one. So I don't know. So they can't just make a hire of whoever, if it's Brian Callahan. A lot of speculation about Brian Callahan being the preference. You still have to interview another minority candidate in person. So, but I suppose maybe there is a plan in place, and it's like, don't waste anybody else's time because, Brian Callahan is, and I think it reportedly he has a second interview today, I believe. So, and on that topic, it does blow my mind that David Shaw. I hope David Shaw is getting like $50K under the table for he's getting flown around the country, because I mean, David Shaw a few years ago is a legitimate NFL head coaching candidate, but I don't think he is now. I don't think anybody's hiring him. So it looks, and I know people have gotten on like Schefter and some of these guys for writing it in terms of the Rooney Rule, but that's what it looks like.
Exactly. 615-737-1025, our phone number, 615-737-1025. What do you make of Ben Johnson's apparent lack of interest in the Titans? Maybe the Titans' lack of following through with Ben Johnson. What does it mean? What do you think of where the coaching search currently stands with the Titans? Is a coaching hire imminent? We'll get into all that coming up next. This is Robbie and Rex Road, 1025, 1063, The Game. Welcome back in, Robbie and Rex Road, 1025, 1063 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rex Road, Nick Keys are here with you on this Monday morning. Taking your thoughts on the Titans coaching search. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. So there's the Ben Johnson situation going on where it doesn't look like he's interviewing with the Titans. Brian Callahan apparently getting his second interview today with the Titans. So, Joe, what do you make of where things currently stand with David Shaw's interview being complete, a second interview coming today with Brian Callahan? And to this point, I believe he's still the only candidate that I've seen that is confirmed to have a second interview with the Titans.
Yeah, well, again, if there is, an in-person interview with a minority candidate coming soon in tandem with this interview with Callahan, then you could see how the wheels could move quickly. I mean, this is a week certainly for, I think we're going to see some hires. So this is, you are, and this is, let's go back to the trading Vrabel idea, which, as we all know, New England was not a trade partner. They never were. So, but this is the idea, is that, you're still right now waiting for the process to play out, right? You're waiting for like your trade partner to get to here before you can then deal Vrabel and then start your own process. You're behind, right? So now the Titans are in a position, and I would think that it's possible that Brian Callahan is coveted by someone else. Maybe not. Maybe he wouldn't get another offer. Maybe the Titans would offer. But if we hypothetically make Brian Callahan the favorite and someone who's going to get an offer, then you've got to move quickly, right? And again, he could turn it down. He could take another job. He could decide to stay in Cincinnati. I mean, Ben Johnson last year, kind of up front, decided to stay with the Lions another year. Maybe Bobby Slowick does that too. We've talked about his readiness, to jump right into being a head coach. But I think we're going to see some hires this week. I think we're going to get clarity on Harbaugh and the Chargers, and then we'll see if Vrabel has. I think Falcons and Seahawks. By the way, someone on the text line who I've lost it now, but here we go. John from Clarksville called shot. Atlanta Falcons new general manager / president of football operations Bill Belichick hires Mike Vrabel as a head coach.
Oh boy,
what do you think? What do you think about that?
That would be something. I mean, a lot of people said, Vrabel could just turn around and hire Belichick as the DC, right? And we've heard a lot of Vrabel being hired as Belichick's DC. A lot of pairing Vrabel and Belichick together, which I don't think is going to happen. But which would be very interesting to think about.
Well, of those two, Belichick's out interviewing to be coach.
Correct.
So I suppose they could do these interviews and he could be like, "Hey, Arthur, actually, I want to be your GM. Did I blow your mind?" Let's get another round of martinis. It's possible, but probably not. So of those scenarios, the more likely would be, and that does happen, you interview someone for your head coaching job. The Titans interviewed Matt LaFleur for the head coaching job, and then they brought him back as OC. Would Vrabel agree to be Bill Belichick's D coordinator as opposed to having a year of spending Amy Adams Strunk's money for doing nothing?
Well, when the connection to like Vrabel and the Falcons was made, I saw a lot of tweets talking about how Vrabel, if hired by Atlanta, has the opportunity to do one of the funniest things of all time, and that would be to be hired by Atlanta to be their head coach, and then to subsequently name Arthur Smith his offensive coordinator directly after Arthur Smith was fired by the Falcons. I'm sure that if the Falcons hired Mike Vrabel, one of the stipulations would be you cannot bring Arthur Smith in as your offensive coordinator. But man, would it be awesome if that's the way it went down.
Yeah, on our Slack channel at The Athletic last week, as soon as the Vrabel thing happened, I put in all caps, "Bring back Art." Would they be okay? Like, would they be all right if you bring him back as like tight ends coach? Is that okay? Maybe. Offensive quality control, something like that.
Like, where's the line on where you could bring it back and where you can't?
Yeah. I'm trying to think. Has it ever happened that a fired head coach at an organization returned later as an assistant at that organization?
Well, it's getting ready to happen at Arkansas in college football, but I'm trying to think at the NFL level if that's happened or not. I don't
Oh, you're
know.
talking about Bobby P. That's right.
Oh
That's
yeah.
right. Yeah, that's a rarity. I mean, I can't think of another example of that. I'm sure there are some. But actually, I saw like a fake account last week say the Vols are hiring Ed Orgeron as offensive line coach, and I was like, oh my God, please let this be true. Don't let this be Richard G. West or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh man, too bad. Austin from Clarksville says, wasn't Shaw in person? They could hire Callahan today. No. Yes. Reportedly, Shaw was in person. That's one. You have to interview 2 minority candidates in person. So, per what we know about all these things, he is one. So they would have to interview someone else
And the
in
Brian
person.
Johnson interview from Philadelphia the other day was virtual, apparently. So I mean,
Aaron
I
Glenn,
guess that
Aaron
could be an
Glenn
option.
interviewed virtually.
Yeah.
And, I mean, like Aaron Glenn, I think is a legit candidate for this job, like Callahan. I don't think David Shaw is. I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe someone hires David Shaw and we're all blown away, but it seems like teams using him to satisfy the Rooney Rule is what it seems like. So, yeah, as of right now, no, they can't just snap their fingers and hire Brian Callahan.
And then there's the Aaron Glenn part of this. And look, even the Mike McDonald, like I threw that name out last week as the one that, like, if they are going to go defensive, it's pretty interesting to me, just based on what he's done in Baltimore. Now, the flip side of that is what everybody says, which is hard to argue given their history. Like, pretty much every defensive coordinator in Baltimore looks pretty good and has over the years. So, how much of it is Mike McDonald and how much of it is, for whatever reason, that organization, they always find a way to be in the mix. They always find a way to have a good defense. They always find a way, when they're not decimated with injuries, to be in the playoffs. Like it is pretty remarkable what the Baltimore Ravens do and the model of consistency that they are.
No, it is. And obviously the Titans ruined a team that could have won it all a few years ago with the 1 seed. But the consistency is amazing. And it's, again, like, look at what Clowney's doing for them.
Yeah.
Now, I do think a lot of the answer on that, the compare and contrast, is that he had a bad knee here and, he wasn't effective, and I figured he was done, but all of a sudden he looks like he's back to being 24 years old out there. He's out there making plays in the run game. He's out there all. So for one, I do give Mike McDonald a lot of credit for what they've done, because that defense looked like it had some holes this year. But in terms of identifying players, and drafting, they're just consistently excellent. Yeah, it's just the entire. That is who, and I don't even know. I honestly don't know. Does John Harbaugh have final say, or not? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I just know that if you want to talk about what a collaboration is supposed to look like, where everybody is on the same page and they consistently make good decisions, they consistently coach their players up, they consistently have toughness and a certain consistency and reliability, that is exactly what the Ravens are. And by the way, when there was some conversation this year about Vrabel and about Vrabel being fired and all that stuff, some of the conversation from within the Titans organization was the whole idea is for Vrabel to be another Tomlin, to be another Harbaugh. Of course, that's toast now. But I'm just saying that's what people talked about and thought about not too long ago in that organization.
By the way, this is a heck of a run for the Harbaughs right now, with Michigan win the national title. Got the Ravens hosting the AFC title game at home. And meanwhile, Jack Harbaugh is delivering post-game speeches to Michigan kids, and then in the Ravens locker room the other night, screaming, "Who's got it better than us? Nobody." The heck of a run for the Harbaughs right now.
It is. And what if the Harbaughs win both championships? My goodness. Tom Crean will be pumped, baby. Tom Crean will be there.
A lot of comments on the text line about, regardless of who the next Titans head coach is, they had better go hire Mike Munchak to be the offensive line coach, based on comments that Zach Pillar has said elsewhere and that PK said on our show the other day. And glad to keep PK and Zach Pillar separated after what PK said at the end of the show the other day.
Yeah. So PK reported. So I saw. So DMAC, Darren McFarland had said something on Twitter. It was like, he's not coming out here or whatever. And I don't know where that was from, but PK talked to Munchak. So I believe he talked to Munchak.
He did. That was still, I believe, still when Vrabel was the coach. So I wonder how much has changed and what that dynamic looks like. But yes, PK did talk to Munchak.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's just you got to see who the coach is. So if it's Callahan, then I believe Bill Callahan's coaching the O-line.
Probably.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, I mean, look, if you get to you get a hire and you don't have a great answer, and the head coach who gets hired here doesn't know for sure who on his staff is filling that spot, I mean, I'd give him a call. Zach in Nashville says Dom Capers, Panthers head coach. Okay, and then later a senior defensive assistant. I did not know that. Thank you, Zach.
Very nice.
Look at you, Zach.
Coming in with the knowledge as always. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. 615-737-1025. Coming up next, you're watching the playoffs right now, and you're looking around the AFC, and you're thinking, man, a lot of really good quarterbacks in this conference. Where can Will Levis ultimately fit into that pantheon with quarterbacks in the AFC? We'll discuss that coming up next. This is Robbie and Rexroad, 1025, 1063, The Game. Hour number 2, Robbie and Rex Road, 1025, 1063. The game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rex Road, Nick Keyser here with you on this Monday morning. Hope everybody's having a good start to their week. We'll be with you all show long, taking your thoughts on the Titans, 615-737-1025. Corey Curtis from News 2 will join us at 8 o'clock to offer his perspective. So, Joe, if you're watching the playoffs right now, you're seeing Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, all these high picks in the AFC run their way through the playoffs and be where they typically are when you're talking about Mahomes and Allen, and to a lesser degree, Jackson, although I think he's starting to answer some questions, and that is making some deep runs in the playoffs here. And regardless of who the head coach is, regardless of decisions that the Titans make around them with their roster, a lot of whether or not the next head coach is going to be successful, whether or not the team moving forward is going to be successful, comes down to Will Levis, right? And we've talked about that, how important he is, how important that position is. So it begs the question, when you look around the rest of the AFC at the quarterback spot specifically, and you try to envision Will Levis and his skill set and where things may be going there, where can he ultimately fit into that group? Where can he ultimately fit into the pantheon of quarterbacks? Now, he doesn't necessarily have to be Patrick Mahomes for the Titans to win and to make some deep playoff runs. And asking anybody at this point to be Patrick Mahomes is ridiculous. And that's maybe rant worthy later. Like we're watching just greatness every year unfold right in front of us. And it's unbelievable some of the records that he's already breaking. But that's, if you're going to be in the AFC, that's going to be a question you have to answer. How do you get around Patrick Mahomes? How do you get around Joe Burrow? How do you get around Josh Allen as you move forward here? And where can Will Levis fit into that mix? Now, it's hard to answer that question right now. He's been a starter for basically half a season. His offensive line in front of him was terrible. The skill position wasn't very good around him either. So there's a lot that the Titans have to do and work on to build things up around Will Levis. But that's going to be the question moving forward beyond who the head coach is, Joe, of how good is Will Levis? How good can Will Levis be? And what does that mean for the Titans and what is becoming an arms race basically with quarterbacks in the AFC?
Yeah. The AFC, it's crazy how loaded it is. Now you add Stroud and what he did this year, and there's a lot of young, promising quarterbacks and then established best quarterbacks in the NFL. But to me, the answer is you build a great team. And obviously you need to hope that Will Levis grows with that team and gets better and shows the ample talent we saw this year, cuts down the mistakes, all that stuff. We have not seen Will Levis in a good situation. Will we see Will Levis in a good situation next fall? It's going to take a heck of a lot of work from Ran Carthon in the front office to make that happen. But I will flip it to the other side, to the other conference, and present to you Jared Goff against Brock Purdy, one of them going to the Super Bowl.
Yep.
They're good. Jared Goff is good. Brock Purdy is good. It's interesting. Jared Goff, number 1 overall pick. Brock Purdy, last overall pick. To me, both good quarterbacks who absolutely benefit from tremendous things around them. I mean, you're talking about, I don't know, that's actually could be the best 2 offensive lines in the NFL, but they're, top 4, right? Something like
For
that.
sure. Yeah.
Fantastic skill position, fantastic offensive scheme. And so those guys look to be a certain level. But does anybody think Jared Goff or Brock Purdy is anything close to a Patrick Mahomes? I sure as hell don't.
No.
So that's the answer. And I don't know. For all we know, Will Levis is going to flame out, and by the end of next year, we're knowing he's not the answer, or he's going to end up being the next Josh Allen. I don't know, but I know that there's no way the second thing's happening or even having a chance of happening if they don't give him an offensive line and some people who can catch the football.
Yeah, and look, from a pure arm talent part of this, like, first off, I mean, the quarterbacks nowadays, there were some unbelievable throws this weekend. Like Josh Allen's touchdown pass yesterday in the corner of the end zone was unreal.
Oh,
we know what Patrick Mahomes can do with the football. Jordan Love was slinging around, made some unreal throws. Like, it's just
the one he had was insane.
Yeah, I mean, it's the quarterback position has evolved where there's so many guys in today's league that can make ridiculous throws. And I think that's one thing we do know about Will Levis is he can make some of those throws. Like he's got the arm talent to make some of those wow throws. Now it takes more than that to play quarterback, but he's got the arm strength and the arm talent to do that. So I feel good about that if I'm a Titans fan moving forward here. He can make some throws that not very many quarterbacks in the history of this franchise can make. But I'm with you. Like you gotta put some people around him that give him a chance to be successful. Part of that is the head coach, right? Like you've got to have the right coaching and to unlock that part of the offense. But your hope is you build a good team around Levis, and in the process of doing so, Levis shows you that he is one of those guys. And if you have that combination of solid foundation, good team around it, good skill players around him, and he turns out to be one of those special guys at quarterback, that's how you win a Super Bowl.
Absolutely. I mean, Jared Goff was thrown on the scrap heap, and he was I mean, McVay didn't think he was good enough, and they got to a Super Bowl with him, but what an awful Super Bowl that was.
Yes.
Like 200 total yards between the teams, but McVay didn't think he was good enough, and Matthew Stafford is more talented, and so I was like, throw in Goff, and he can be your bridge quarterback, Lions, like, and then you can draft your actual quarterback, and he'll just be like the veteran caretaker, and you guys can go like 3-14, and then get a high pick and all that, and then look at him now. We think we know things, and then we don't know, but it's so much of it was about, again, all these things around him. Will Levis has, I don't think there's any doubt, the ability to be a really effective quarterback. And again, if it all were to come together, and so much of that is obviously, just like making those plays in the clutch moments, making those throws right when you have to have it, not making that killer mistake. And it's just stuff we don't know yet, but he has the ability. And I think he also has the demeanor, the approach, all that stuff that you want to see. I mean, like Kirk Cousins, for example, is another guy who, like Will Levis is quite a bit more talented than just like most quarterbacks in this league. I've said this before about Cousins many times. Just pure talent. There's limitations, but
yeah,
boom, quick decisions, knows everything going on, knows the opponent inside and out, knows his own offense inside and out, and he's accurate. And the ball's out fast and you're accurate. That makes up for so many other things that you may not have. So we're about to find out with Will Levis, but yeah, I don't sit here today, look at the AFC, for as great as the quarterback roster out there looks, and say, oh, well, the Titans, until they get until a better quarterback. Like, again, some people around the league are saying that about the Titans, right? Well, they don't have a quarterback. They don't have an answer quarterback. I don't look at it that way. They have so many deficiencies. We can't tell what Will Levis is going to be. We saw Ryan Tannehill playing at an all-pro, at least Pro Bowl level a few years ago. Why? Because of him, and he did a good job, and Arthur Smith, but there's so many things, Arthur Smith included, the offensive line, A.J. Brown, all those things around him were so good then. And then all of a sudden his performance started to regress. Why? I'd say it's more about the things around him than him.
Cam on the text line says the AFC has 16 teams. I feel like Will Levis could be in the 6 to 10 range in the AFC, which would have him a top 15 quarterback overall, in my opinion. And that could be good enough if we get pieces around him. Of course, that's if he develops and grows off what he's shown. Jared from Spring Hill saying Levis has got a lot of Josh Allen in him. He would have missed that throw like Allen did last night for the go-ahead touchdown. This from Jared from Spring Hill. I have heard the Will Levis, Josh Allen comparison in terms of this, the arm strength and somewhat the body type. Yeah. Now, Allen runs way more than Will Levis does, but I have heard that comparison before.
Yeah, I see it a little bit. And now I don't think the Titans are ever going to get to using Will Levis. Josh Allen's a tank. He's made of steel. I'm still blown away here. And then it's like, yeah, let's just run QB power, get 8 yards with Josh Allen, take a few hits. That's fine. I mean, Will Levis, I think in the last 2 years of football, one at Kentucky, one with the Titans, you see, like, you can't play him like that.
No.
Right. So he's not going to, but I do think that he's certainly athletic. He can be a very effective runner. I think it's going to have to be a lot more selective for him. And the deep ball is where, like, the deep ball that Josh Allen threw to Stephon Diggs yesterday was absolutely absurd. 60 yards in the air on his hands.
He's got to come down on that ball.
He does.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's where I think the comparison, like LD from McMinnville says, I see Levis more of a Stafford type. Stafford he's got the rocket when he needs to fit the ball in somewhere, and he's got the different arm angles and stuff. But Levis is definitely a better athlete than Stafford, especially now, with Stafford in his advanced age here. So I think Allen is a pretty good comparison. But like you said, it's Josh Allen, just like Lamar Jackson, those guys, you can just you use the QB run as a weapon. I don't think that'll ever be the case with Will Levis. Not a consistent weapon.
No, and I don't think it should be. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. So where do you believe Will Levis can ultimately get to when you look around the AFC and rank the quarterbacks? Can he put himself in the discussion with the top quarterbacks in the AFC? Does he have to in order for the Titans to compete ultimately for a Super Bowl? 615-737-1025. We'll continue that discussion coming up next. Tune in to 93.3 Classic Hits this Wednesday night for MTSU men's basketball. The Blue Raiders are at home taking on Jacksonville State with pregame beginning at 6, tip-off at 6:30. Coverage also available on the 93.3 Classic app and at 93.3classichits.com. You're listening to Robbie and Rex Road, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Folks, you've been watching the NFL Playoffs on the sidelines. There's still time to get in the game with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. New customers, bet Sunday's conference championship games with $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up W. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to leave the Lions game alone right now, okay? But I'm going to tell you right now, I think the Chiefs have figured it out. I think that's going to be a heck of a game. I think I would take them in the points at this point. If you want to follow my picks, go to FanDuel right now. Get started with $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place that first $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com/Joe102 to join today. Again, FanDuel.com/Joe102. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. You must be 21 or older, present in Tennessee. First online room money wager only. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issue is now withdrawable bonus sets that expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms of sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call the Tennessee Red Line, 800-889-9789.
Welcome back in. Robbie and Rex Road, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Brought to you by Chuck McDowell and Medical House Calls, Middle Tennessee's best medical care in the comfort and safety of your own home. For more information, go to medicalhousecalls.com. Medical House Calls, where the nearest clinic is your home. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rex Road, Nick Keyser here with you. Throwing the question out there, where do you think Will Levis can ultimately get to in the pantheon of quarterbacks in the AFC? Where do you think he has to get to for the Titans to compete for a Super Bowl? By the way, I've used the word pantheon like 5 times. Big vocabulary word for Robbie Stanley going on today.
That's a solid word. Pantheon's a very good word. You've had some good ones. What was that day when we had Kaharski on here? You used a word. I was like, I need to look it up. You know what I'm
There's
talking
no
about?
telling. No.
Yeah.
Just
God,
sometimes it just comes to me. I
I
don't
wish
know.
I could remember it. Yeah.
That Hendersonville High School education has taken me a long way. Me and Taylor
Commandos,
Swift.
baby.
Yep. No
That's
question
right.
about it.
That's right.
Speaking of, we've been comparing, Josh Allen and Will Levis. How do we think beyond the total pain of missing the field goal, it is yet another situation where Allen and the Bills can't make a deep playoff run and specifically can't get past Kansas City? How do we think how do you view that? Like, how do you view that if you're the Bills? How do you view that if you're ownership? How do you view that with a Josh Allen situation? Is it just tipping your cap and saying, you know what, that Patrick Mahomes is great? Like, it's got to be incredibly frustrating for Buffalo today, especially having that game at home.
Yeah. Well, think about the ups and downs of that franchise this year. They were about to not make the playoffs. Let's remember that. And Sean McDermott's job was loudly being questioned. And then they figured out. I mean, you got all this stuff with Stephon Diggs, and he's all mad about this or that. And even like last year, it's like, well, they lost Brian Daboll, and now Josh Allen's not as good. He's last year. Remember how many awful picks he was throwing? It's just like I think Josh Allen's a great quarterback, but to sit here and pretend like they are losing despite him being consistently excellent is wrong. Some of this has been on him.
Yep.
And so look, he certainly I'm sticking with him if I'm them. I'm happy to have Josh Allen as my quarterback if I'm an NFL team. The coaching situation is interesting. I think he's a good coach, but there's definitely a Lucy and Charlie Brown thing here with the Chiefs. But also, again, like they were all over the place this year. They had some. I mean, they were as erratic a team I think as the NFL had this year. That was a good team. So, you could make the case. Fire McDermott, bring in Vrabes. Vrabes knows how to beat the Chiefs. Vrabes knows how to deal with Patty Mahomes. But I don't think. I mean, in all seriousness, I don't think you can do that now. I don't think they will. It's got to be frustrating. And by the way, the salary cap situation for that team is about to get more challenging. So they probably will mortgage a lot for another run with those guys, but they've got a lot of aging guys. Von Miller is able to find his way back in the field. Good for him. But like they've done a lot to try to make this run, and it just hasn't quite worked for him.
I think Diggs is done there. Like, just with all the smoke that's been around him and with the way that things played out with him to begin the last season, I think you saw the last game Stephon Diggs will play in a Buffalo uniform last night. I could be wrong, but it just feels like that's coming to an end to me.
Yeah, I think you're probably right there. So it's he's been a huge part of this rise for them. As bizarre as some of the stuff's been since last camp, he's been a critical part of what they've done. I mean, it's interesting watching them play because I swear it's QB run and like swing to the running back. They ran the ball well with James Cook yesterday. Yeah. But it's like dink, 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 and then the occasional deep shot. It's almost like their intermediate passing game didn't exist yesterday. So, but yeah, this may end up being, it could be like the high water mark for them to get to the point of they got a real chance to get to the title game, and now starts going the wrong way on them.
Well, this quarterback discussion is so interesting if you're the Titans, right? Because like the first priority, if you're measuring quarterbacks and like where they stack up against each other, if you're the Titans, is your own division, right? Like you've seen CJ Stroud play at a borderline MVP level this year. So you got that to contend with moving forward. I have no idea about Trevor Lawrence. Like I don't know what to make of him and that whole situation as they move forward. And then there's Anthony Richardson. Like, what if Anthony Richardson comes out next year and number one can stay healthy and number two looks really good? Like, I think one thing became pretty clear to me this year, Joe, and that is Shane Steichen's a pretty good coach. I think they missed him tremendously in Philadelphia, and I think he did an excellent job of getting that Colts team to within a game of the playoffs there. So, like, what if Anthony Richardson comes out and is really good? Like, that's just in your own division that you've got to contend with. And then there's the Joe Burrows and the Josh Allens and Lamar Jacksons and the Patrick Mahomes of the world's in the same conference. And by the way, Rodgers is supposed to play next year too. So there's a lot you got to deal with if you're the quarterback in the AFC, and it starts in your own division.
Yep. No, that's right. And don't forget, I mean, Justin Herbert, I mean, if Harbaugh goes in there, I mean, who knows? Tua, I still think Tua's good. Maybe not great, but he's good. It's a heck of a roster. And that's the thing too. It's like you mentioned Steichen. I agree. You have to be impressed with what he did. Anthony Richardson, by the way, he would be the other guy who would be probably used like Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen to some extent, probably should be. But then again, can he hold up? Do they have to play differently with him? But I think Steichen's good, and I think DeMeco Ryans is good. So you have two good and I mean Doug Peterson's a good coach too. So the Titans are trying to get up to speed with a division that has, I think, good coaching and good quarterbacking. And right now, we don't know who the coach is going to be. I think the quarterback can hang in there if you help him out. But there's so many things that you have to do and change to help him out.
Jared from Spring Hill asked, do you know who the Titans picked in the draft over Lamar Jackson? I do know. Lamar Jackson was taken 32nd overall in 2018. I believe, and I will double check this, but I'm about 99% sure I'm right. 2018 was when the Titans drafted Rashaan Evans in the first round.
You are right. You are absolutely right.
Not that was, the Titans taking someone over Lamar Jackson. I guess everybody took somebody over Lamar Jackson, but Rashaan Evans.
Yeah, so I mean, sometimes people also go back to Mahomes, right? The Titans could have the Titans were 100% not taking anybody over Mariota in the 17 draft. He had just had a really promising second season. Now
the tough one is a team like Arizona in 2018 that took Josh Rosen and Lamar Jackson was there for him. That's a tough one.
Ooh, boy, that is a toughie. That is a real toughie, right? Yeah, if you took a quarterback. I don't have the whole draft in front of me, but that one is especially wow.
Well, Baker went 1, Sam Darnold went 3 to the Jets. So
there you go. Everybody, that's the thing. It's like I think Caleb Williams is going to be good. It's hard to imagine he won't be. I know there's some stuff about some weird stuff. Doesn't want to go to the Bears or wants to own a team or whatever, but still don't know. I don't know. No idea. Caleb Williams and Drake May both be complete all-time flops, you know?
The next Jameis and Marcus.
But we are going to, we're going to, the conversation in the next few months is going to be as if we all know what they're going to be, right? Like, let's just all acknowledge we don't have a freaking clue. If we could all just do that together, it would make the world a better place.
John on the text line says Levis's growth and ceiling will be determined by the next head coach and Carthon's ability to find him an elite weapon to grow with. Mahomes and Maato, nice reference. Brady, Gronk. Otherwise, he'll be Stafford in Detroit without Megatron. This is from John on the text line.
Yeah, that's the thing. You bring up Stafford. Stafford, tremendous talent, and he had Calvin Johnson, and actually he had a couple offenses with the Lions that were really good.
Yep.
They got to the playoffs, and they lost a shootout to Drew Brees one year, and they lost a killer to the Cowboys with a really good all around offensive roster. Had a bad defense, so the team didn't do anything, But of course, you've got DeAndre Hopkins one more year, right? And but you've got to build that up big time. Look at your Packers. I mean, it's like they just keep coming up with guys who are making big plays. Like I can't remember a deeper receiver room of just like they all make plays.
Yeah.
And that's what you need. And the Titans have like a lot of receivers, but of course, we also don't know how good the Titans receivers are by and large because they can't block anyone. That's still where it starts. Look at the offensive tackle play of the teams that played this deep. Look at the offensive line play in general of the teams that got this deep. We talk about quarterback all the time. It's the most important single position. You can't win up front. You're not doing a thing.
Coming up next, it was a pretty good weekend for Tennessee football in the transfer portal. We'll get into that. Also, a damaging loss by the Predators in Arizona on Saturday. They'll try to rebound tonight. We'll get into all that coming up next. Tune in to 94.9 The Fan this Saturday for Vanderbilt men's basketball. Commodores taking on Tennessee at home. Tip off at 5 o'clock. Pregame beginning at 4:30. Coverage also available on the 94.9 The Fan app. You're listening to Robbie and Rex Road, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robbie and Rex Road, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, broadcasting from the Spring Hill Heating and Cooling Game Nashville studios, keeping your home feeling comfortable all year round. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexroad, Nick Keyser here with you on this Monday morning. Joe, it was a big weekend for Tennessee in the transfer portal. They get Jackson Moy, defensive lineman from Stanford, to transfer over, and I think that was made official yesterday. And the big one over the weekend, Zalance Hurd, the 5-star offensive lineman from LSU, offensive tackle, coming over from the Tigers to the Tennessee Volunteers. So you're talking about, I believe, according to On3, he was the number 4 offensive tackle in his recruiting class, number 22 player overall, 5-star recruit. And obviously that's a position group for the Vols, Joe, that has some question marks heading into it next year on the offensive line. And we've talked about the need to recruit and develop guys specifically on the O-line. That's a big get for Tennessee to get Hurd in there to add to that offensive line group for Nico next season.
Yeah, it's a big deal. They badly needed that ad that's been kind of percolating for a while. And maybe does this mean that John Campbell goes to right tackle?
Maybe.
I think there's some speculation that could be the case. I would also just remind people, 5-star recruits, it's always great. But, sometimes 5-star recruits don't work out and then they get into college and who knows? I mean, things happen. So you have to, you keep expectations a little bit down on expecting, an NFL first rounder who just signed up for campus, right? But still, they badly needed bodies, they badly needed help, and obviously he's got a lot of talent. So this could be a big development, for next year. It's just like once people get into college for a few years and whatever, they're not playing, they were 5-star recruits coming out of high school. You got to still keep that in perspective.
Yeah, no question about it. He's 6'5", 305. The player comparison that he is compared to on 3 is DJ Fluker from Alabama, which you would take that right now if you're a Tennessee. Fluker, who ended up being, I believe, a first-round pick in 2013. So you take that right now if you're the Vols.
Yes. No, for sure. Meanwhile, look, I still think that the Vols would be better off if they still had Gerald Mincey, right?
Yep.
For depth, but you can kind of look at the picture and you see from his perspective, well, he might be losing a starting spot, right? With this guy coming in. I don't know how it all worked out in terms of the communication, but obviously the Vols have been in pursuit of her here, so you kind of knew maybe that he might lose a spot, and then maybe obviously maybe Kentucky. He said he had a post, right? He said like business is business or whatever. So maybe Kentucky threw a little extra money than what the Tennessee collective was paying him, and that's how things like that happen.
Then on the hardwood, Joe, while this was going on, you had apparently some former Bama players that may be entering the transfer portal in football at the game between Tennessee and Alabama at the hardwood. And Tennessee smoked Alabama on Saturday, 91-71, the final at what used to be Thompson Bowling Arena. What's that thing called now? Food City
Center.
Yeah, it's not the same.
Yeah, but really some big time games in that arena, and also Tennessee women coming, finishing late to beat Vanderbilt yesterday. Vanderbilt right now is an NCAA tournament team. Tennessee's not, but that helps them for sure, and they'll have another game. But Tennessee men look really good right now. Dalton Knecht is flying high, but also Jonas Aidoo has kind of become second fiddle, really. You need Vescovi and Ziegler and James eventually. Gainey, different guys can hit shots. Ziegler's been playing great at point guard, running the team. But Jonas Aidoo he's becoming a reliable post threat, and he's a rim protector on the other end. I think he's the best 5 the way he's playing now that they've had under Rick Barnes. So I still, every time he shoots a 3, I'm like, I need to do that, man. But a little pick and roll with Knecht and Aidoo, it's a real problem for opponents. So look, we're going to be talking about it until it's really go time. But right now, the SEC championship, I know Kentucky's all excited because Big Z debuted and he looks ridiculous.
He does.
Like an SEC championship this year would be on its own a big time achievement, because Auburn is also loaded, and so it's going to be a really fun race in that league.
Joe, on the Preds side of things, they go to Arizona on Saturday. They lose 3-2 to the Coyotes, and it's a damaging loss from the standpoint of the Predators have been a little bit fortunate here because Calgary's hit a wall, Seattle hit a wall after their 9-game winning streak or whatever it was they had. So those two teams have not been able to make up any ground on the Predators the last few days, but you had an opportunity there. If you could get that win against Arizona, you could have gone up 6 points on them, especially if you got it done in regulation. And now with them beating you, they're only 4 points back, and they've got 2 games in hand on you. So again, there's still a lot of hockey to be played, and that game may not end up mattering in the grand scheme of things, but an opportunity that the Predators let get away from them on Saturday. against an Arizona team that, for whatever reason, they continue to struggle with the Arizona Coyotes, and they have for a while now. And this version of Arizona is certainly better than they have been the last few years, but that's a game. The Predators started the game. It was like a shooting gallery. I think they were out shooting Arizona at one point like 10-3, and they just couldn't convert. And then all of a sudden, one ends up in the back of your net, and the Predators just looked a little sloppy after that. It's a damaging loss to the Coyotes on Saturday. Preds back at it tonight against Florida.
Yeah, I need to understand like how they look the way they do. It seemed to some extent kind of consistently against Arizona, and like they played Dallas, and it's like, I mean, like,
Yeah.
like explain to me like I'm a child how this happens. I mean, I think the explanation is sometimes there's matchups, but also 82 games is probably the answer, right?
Yeah.
But like at some point, you'd think they'd get pissed off about Arizona and do something about it.
Yeah, I mean look, they made a late push. They got a goal. I think Novak scored with like a minute and a half left, somewhere in that neighborhood, to make it 3-2. And they tried to get a push on there, but just couldn't get it done at the end of the day. And now, I mean, we've talked about the schedule part of this, Joe, but look, the Florida Panthers are no joke, man. They were in the Stanley Cup final last year. They're number 2 in the Atlantic Division right now. They would currently have a first-round matchup with Toronto, which would just be hilarious to watch that unfold again. But you got Florida coming up tonight if you're the Predators. You got Minnesota on the road on Thursday, and then Edmonton on Saturday. And Edmonton is playing as well or better than anybody in the league right now. So this is yet another tough week for you schedule-wise, and that's why, we talked about last week, some of these games, they're important. You got to find a way to win. And now you got one of the best teams in the league tonight in Florida. Minnesota's not been very good, but they hammered you the last time you saw them under John Hines. And then Edmonton on Saturday, which has been a house of horrors for the Predators with Draisaitl and McDavid in the way that they're playing. So it's a gigantic week for the Nashville Predators.
Well, what you got Vancouver after that on the road, right?
You have, well, they're done with Vancouver. They got Ottawa on Monday.
No, they got Ottawa.
Then LA coming in next week, which is also a huge game.
Right, back for the Kings. The rest of this January schedule is absurd. So you got to come in tonight and have your best and take advantage of being at home before one more trip out there. Then you obviously got to play a lot better against Minnesota than you did last time. How about Corey Perry, by the way?
Yeah, looks like Corey Perry is going to end up on Edmonton, which is interesting.
That's interesting.
Honestly, like, I think it's a good fit stylistically for like what they need. So it could be a pretty good signing for them. Whatever issues he's worked out, I hope that he's worked those out.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like that kind of changes, well, it's not just the Preds alone, but like immediately makes the hateability of the Oilers like 20% more at least just with adding one guy, It
does. Now you're going to be wondering like, okay, can they come close to stopping Draisaitl and or McDavid? And will Corey Perry hit one of them in the head? Like, that's what you're wondering if you're a Predators fan. Like, will there be a cheap shot on Saturday when that game comes around? It's going to be interesting to see what happens on that front. And then, like, tonight, look, I didn't think Saros was bad on Saturday by any stretch of the imagination. But that's another loss that he's piled up after he played great in L.A.
Yeah.
You got a Florida team tonight that, like I said, when you're starting to identify Stanley Cup contenders, I put Florida in there because of just the depth that they have. I think they got a great coach in Paul Maurice, and they're fighting for a spot in their division too. This is a big challenge for the Predators tonight against a really good team, and you got to find a way if you're going to make the playoffs. You got to beat some good teams, and they've done it. Like they beat LA last week. They've beaten Dallas a couple times. They've beaten Colorado. It's not like they can't beat good teams, but you got to find a way tonight at home to step up to the challenge and win a game against a team that's really, really good.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, I mean, Saros, we were sounding the alarm bells last week. I mean, it's certainly he's played better. Do you weave in a Lankinen a little bit more frequently, a surprise weave in of Lankinen here or there, just to kind of keep it from Saros, getting worn down? I mean, is that a possibility here?
I think it is. I mean, and part of that's the way he's played too, right? Like, I think Lankinen has been good. So, I mean, they're a far cry from the David Riddick situation a couple years ago where you were scared to death to put him in net. Like, you're not you're not that way with Lankinen. So I think you could see that. I mean, the good news is after a stretch in like late November into December where they were playing every other night, there's some space in between their games now where they've got some practice time. You got the All-Star break coming up, you got the bye week coming up after that. So they're going to get a lot of rest here coming up here in the next few weeks. So maybe that influences the goalies that you start that way, but I don't think it's a bad idea to weave in Lankinen other than like it used to be if it wasn't a back-to-back, you knew that Saros was starting, and I don't think it should be that way anymore.
Yeah. I have no idea, if workload has anything to do with anything, but he's had heavy workload last couple of years for sure. So to me, it seems like you just, like you said, if you have a good second option, and this happens sometimes, early in Saros' career, if Pekka Rinne had a little struggle, you knew you had a good backup. It's
Yep.
a good thing to be able to go to and just take a little bit of pressure off.
615-737-1025, our phone number. Coming up next, it's time for the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode. You can check it out every morning at 7:45. Corey Curtis from News 2 will join us at 8 o'clock. All that ahead. This is Robbie and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game.
Sometimes he wakes up on the wrong side of the bed. And sometimes he's just, well, Joe.
Awkward moment, let's do it.
This is the Rex Rant, now on Robbie and Rex Road.
So everybody from the 313, put your hands up and follow me. Everybody from the 313, put your hands up. Look. Now while he stands tough, notice that this man did not have his hands up.
All you got to do is get in.
Stop playing with us. That's all I gotta say, man. Don't let these tears fool you. It's all dog around this mud.
It is that time of the day. Time for the Rex Rant with Joe Rexroad. You can check it out every morning at 7:45. The victorious Detroit Lions edition of the Rex Rant with Joe Rexroad, advancing to the NFC title game.
So did Eminem make like a new like a Lion song? Is that right?
I think so.
Oh boy, I haven't heard it, but yeah. All right, Grandpa, have a seat. Have a seat. Speaking of which, today for my rant, I want to say happy birthday to my maternal grandmother, Phyllis Pratt, 96 years old.
Awesome.
Happy birthday, Grandma. And I think I've said this on the program, but if not, I'll say again. Grandma Pratt's the best human I've encountered in my life, is my model for human behavior. She is kind. She sees the best in everyone, just like me, as you know.
Long fuse.
Yeah, long fuse. Yeah, well, very long fuse. She's yelled at me one time in my life, and it was like when I was like 13, relentlessly picking on my little brother. And I used to be tough on him, man. And like she finally like snapped and went off on me, and it was so like I was like, Grandma yelled at me. It was like that's the only time in my entire life. So she was. I want to congratulate her along with saying happy birthday because I know yesterday was a thrill for her. The Detroit Lions gave her a thrill. She was there at a family party for her birthday with, among other people, her oldest child, my Uncle Bill, who, as we've discussed, second grade 1957. He was able to talk trash to the Browns fans in second grade. They lived in Canton, Ohio. The Lions beat the Browns to the NFL championship. Thought maybe we'd see Lions-Browns in the Super Bowl this year. That would have been nice, right? But, yeah, they've been there a long time. My first Lions game, I went with Grandma and Grandpa Pratt. My first Detroit Tigers game, Grandma and Grandpa Pratt. Bill Pratt Sr., who we lost in 2010, he was the ultimate cynic. He made fun of all the teams he loved. He called all the Detroit sports writers jerks, and he basically taught me to read by reading their columns. So that probably tells you a little bit of something about how my life went. But I hope Grandma Pratt is enjoying this. I know that if she had a choice, it would be the Detroit Tigers to win it again. Last time we had that was 84. And, we got close a few years ago, and boy, are we far away now. But I will call her today to wish her a happy birthday, talk about the game, and I hope she answers. I called her Saturday for her beef stroganoff recipe because yesterday was Katie Rexroad's birthday. Happy birthday, by the way,
Yes.
to my wife. But Grandma Pratt was out. She had a lunch date, and then she was playing cards with her friends. 96
Awesome.
freaking years old, and she has a better social life than I do. Love you, Grandma Pratt.
Awesome. Happy birthday, Grandma Pratt. And yes, what a birthday present yesterday, the Detroit Lions to the NFC title game. And I have to say, like, for people like your grandmother, for people who have been long-suffering Detroit Lions fans, this is kind of fun to watch. Look, obviously, I'm a Packers fan, and the Lions are a rival in the NFC North, so it's difficult for me to like root for them. But I will say, it's pretty fun to watch. Like a fan base that has been as long-suffering as that one has been, to see them have this opportunity is pretty cool. And if they do win this game against San Francisco, like the idea of them in the Super Bowl is pretty fun to think about.
Yeah, it's fun. It's also making me consider, loading up on like weapons and food and things like that because I think the planet will implode. Okay. So that's the thing, Grandma, all you Lions fans, I do want you to embrace the possibility that the 49ers are going to kick the crap out of the Lions on Sunday. Okay?
Here we go.
It's possible. I'm just saying. It might happen. And also just the Lions making the Super Bowl still. This is, again, they've gotten to this point one other time. It's the same time we've talked about. 32 years ago when they had Barry Sanders, they did get to the NFC title game. They got crushed by Mark Rippon, Joe Gibbs, Gary Clark.
Oh, yeah.
Those great Washington team back then. They have a better chance this time, but you also have to, I think, enjoy the journey to this point. If this is it, you can enjoy it, right? I mean,
You can enjoy it for sure.
You can be happy with this. I'm just saying, like, you still have to, like, if they lose to the Niners, to me, like, you can't do the same old Lions is something people love to say. I mean, it's a hell of a run. That's a great job. It's probably going to happen. They're probably going to lose. Okay.
I mean, they've doubled up their playoff wins this year that they've had since 1957. For God's sake, you can't say same old Lions anymore.
Exactly. Like they went, one, and now they have 3. That's insane. Yeah. So I guess per math, they've tripled, right?
They've tripled them.
I guess they've tripled their wins, their playoff wins. So let's all enjoy this, Grandma. Enjoy it, everybody. But just be ready for the Lions to get destroyed Sunday. Okay. It might happen.
C from Franklin on the text line says, live look at Joe sneaking back into Lions fandom. There's a picture of Tom from Tom and Jerry with a Lions hat on, like sneaking through a door. Have you, what's this been like for you? Have you allowed yourself to like consider what it would be like if you were still a Lions fan right now? Is there temptation from little Joey Rexroad of years past to allow yourself to buy in at this point? What's it been like?
Well, look, it's been a lot of fun, and there's a lot of people I love who are very happy. But that's the same thing with Michigan winning a national championship. I mean, a lot of people I love who are super happy. So I was very happy for them, excited for them. I gave it up. I can't do it. It's not. I think the rules of fandom tell you like I can't do it. Right? I mean, I think I have to follow that. I got a lot of enjoyment and save myself a lot of pain over a lot of years by just deciding to turn on them and make fun of them. I can't go back now. That's just how it is. And that's fine. I'm fine with it. I'm enjoying it. Even, this is one of those things that even if it wasn't them and personal with my family and child and all that stuff, like if this was the Browns or whatever, the team that comes out of nowhere and they've historically been terrible, like you enjoy that in general, right? As a fan. So certainly I'm that, but yeah, I can't be a Lions fan again. It's not, I can't do it. I mean, is there like some reapplication to get back in? I don't know about this process. If somebody knows about it, let me know.
Some sort of ceremony, I think, would have to take place in order for that to be acceptable.
I have to sacrifice a chicken or something, or like cut myself, or well, look, if they get to the Super Bowl, then maybe I'll have to reconsider. If they get to the Super Bowl and a meteor doesn't hit Earth a moment later, and we're all still here, then I may have to revisit.
Let me ask you a quick random question that nobody outside of me right now is thinking about. What does all this mean for Hendon Hooker? Is he going to be the next Jordan Love, sitting there for 3 years behind Jared Goff?
That's a really good question. And I still absolutely believe Hendon Hooker can be a good NFL quarterback. And the thing is, like, you look at Jared Goff, he's been terrific. Also, like a hint of pass rush, and I mean it's not good. And you wonder think about Hendon Hooker and his quick feet and being able to extend plays with everything else they have going for him, right? And it could be kind of exciting, but that's a fascinating situation because what kind of a deal does Jared Goff get?
Yeah,
at this point, like I think it's probably like a bridge deal kind of thing. Does he think now, no, he can go somewhere else? I don't think anybody out there is going to give Jared Goff some huge deal at this point.
I don't think so.
He got the second deal with the Rams, but it's a really interesting situation. I mean, you don't want to give up what you have going for you, right?
No,
you're in the NFC title game. But yeah, may end up just being one way or the other. Hendon Hooker has an extended time to sit around and wait, and he's older anyway. But you know what? Sometimes that could work out well for you.
Keith on the text line says, best rant yet. Well done. Very nicely done, Joe. Way to go.
Keith. Thank you, Keith. I mean, I wish everybody knew Phyllis Pratt. She's pretty special.
Coming up next, it's time to be joined by Corey Curtis from News 2. Joins us every Monday morning at 8 o'clock. We'll get his thoughts on divisional weekend in the NFL, his thoughts on the Titans head coaching search as well. That's next. This is Robbie and Rexroad, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Hour number 3, Robbie and Rex Road, 1025, 1063 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rex Road, Nick Keyser here with you on this Monday morning. And as we do every Monday morning at 8 o'clock, we welcome our friend Corey Curtis from News 2 to the program on our 1025 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Corey, good morning. How are you?
Why don't we just call this segment the weekly celebration of the NFC North?
It really is. As you pointed out on Twitter last night, the Bears didn't lose. The Lions didn't lose. The Packers did lose. So I guess it's a good week for you.
The only NFC North team to lose. The Vikings didn't lose either. The only NFC North team to lose was Green Bay.
That is true. What did you think of divisional weekend? Baltimore hammers Houston. San Francisco gets past my beloved Packers. And then yesterday, the Lions punched their ticket to the NFC title game. And the Bills missed the field goal at the end, and Kansas City wins again to advance the AFC title game. What did you make of what we saw on divisional weekend and the matchups in the title games?
Well, actually 3 really good games, number one. So that was fun to watch. It was also, to see Brock Purdy come up with that drive late and step up, is impressive and great to see, for the future of 49ers, for the future of the NFL, really, when you can see, guys step into that role and be that guy, for the line. I mean, Jared Goff stepped up for the Lions. He stepped up both playoff games. He's been great. I mean, that touchdown throw to Amon-Ra St. Brown was, just pinpoint, absolutely perfect. He's been great. As a Cubs fan, I'm happy for the Lions. I am. I know the pain. I know the misery. I know the feeling of defeat before every season starts. So excited for them to reach this point. We'll see what they've got in San Francisco, but this is a huge step forward for them. And then the Bills and the Chiefs. Every one of these is a classic. It seems like, and I will be the first to say I was wrong. All season long, I have said that the Chiefs do not have the weapons to get to the championship game. They do not have the weapons. I still don't think they have the weapons, but they're there, and Patrick Mahomes got them there, putting 27 points on the board when I didn't think they could score 27 points. And as good as Josh Allen is, he missed that throw late that could have put them in the lead.
Well, so are you talking about the one to Diggs?
No, the one
in the end zone.
Where he's short in the end zone. Right. Yeah.
The guy was open. I mean, he's open. I mean, you're an elite quarterback. You complete that throw.
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like he's great. I'd take him as my quarterback, but
absolutely,
yeah, it's not like none of these big losses have been on him. Some of them, last year the turnovers.
You feel like Mahomes completes that throw though.
Yeah, Mahomes is So Mahomes in Baltimore. I mean, both of these games excite me. I'm a little, in all seriousness, I'm not just like trolling the Lions. I am a little dubious. I still think if the Niners play their best, they're clearly better at home against the Lions. But I'm hoping we get 2 good games. Do you think we will?
Gosh, I got to think the Chiefs and Ravens is down to the wire. You have to think that one is. And, the Lions had every opportunity to pucker in that game, to tie it at 10 at the half. Look, I mean, the Bucs came in with 8 losses. So, I mean, they clearly were not a perfect team. I think I had the Bucs pick 32nd in my preseason rankings. So
you weren't alone.
Yeah, he's been in some tough situations, played when he probably shouldn't have played, injured that last year in Cleveland. So I was glad to see him play at a high level and achieve and show he could win in the playoffs. But, there are franchises and there are teams that we've seen collapse before. And, that's a game that, a lot of teams that have a history of losing lose, and they kept going. And I think, their head coach has a lot to do with that. And I think their culture has a lot to do with that. And so, I look, I think they can go to San Francisco and play. Are they going to win? I don't know. But I mean, the 49ers were lucky to get by Green Bay.
Corey, what do you make of where the Titans coaching search currently stands? Brian Callahan getting a second interview today, reportedly. So he's the one that we know is getting a second interview at this point.
Yeah.
Doesn't sound like Ben Johnson has much interest in interviewing with the Titans. I think he's interviewed with everybody except the Titans. And then there's people that continue to believe that Aaron Glenn is going to get strong consideration for the Titans head coaching job as well. So what do you make of where things currently stand, and which way do you see the wind blowing right now as it relates to the Titans head coaching search?
Well, you're asking me my opinion. I'm going to tell you I think it's Brian Callahan or Aaron Glenn that's going to wind up with this job. They've got one of the Rooney Rule interviews out of the way. The question is, when can they get the second one? If it's Aaron Glenn, when can they get that done? I don't know what are the rules for interviewing Aaron Glenn now? They're still coaching.
If they win, well, they can't this week.
Waiting.
If they win, they have to wait until
after
they
the
can't.
Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think so. So I think Aaron Glenn may have coached himself out of this job if he was going to get it or going to be seriously considered.
Well, and now they're going to have to bring in a second external minority in for an interview outside of David Shaw. They've got plenty to choose from because they've interviewed Brian Johnson, the guy from Carolina,
Thomas Brown. Yep.
Yeah, Thomas Brown. There's another one I think too. I'm trying to go over. There's 10 candidates. But yeah, so there's plenty to choose from. But yeah, so I think it's one of those two, and it's a matter of how much. If they want Aaron Glenn, are they willing to wait? I think, like I said, I think it's one of those two guys, and Callahan makes a lot of sense as 1A, but we'll wait and we'll see. It's interesting.
I personally, I'll call a shot. Okay. I think Thomas Brown comes in this week for an in-person interview, and I think that Brian Callahan has offered the job, and I think it's possible that Thomas Brown is his OC.
Yeah, I think that's possible for sure. I think he's the only one of these guys that they've interviewed that makes sense as an OC possibility. I know a lot of people think Cohen is a possibility as well at OC for Callahan, the former Kentucky OC. But I think, Thomas Brown, there's a lot of continuity with that Rams system, with Callahan, who coaches for a coach who comes from that system as well. I think that would make a lot of sense.
Corey, what do you think of the Ben Johnson part of this, of him interviewing basically with everybody except the Titans who have requested to interview him at this point?
I've always thought that the big spenders, the Commanders and Panthers, were going to be the hottest and heaviest after him. I know the Titans like him a lot and were really interested, but I just always thought those two were going to be willing to spend more to get him. And I think when you see his paycheck, it's for a guy who's never been a head coach, it's going to be astronomical. And so we'll see how that works out. And I'm guessing he's the Commanders coach. I talked to Teron Davenport last night. He says Washington, and I agree with him.
So let's say it is Callahan. You're talking about potentially his dad coming in as O-line coach. I know there's been some Munchak, chatter out there for sure, but got a guy who doesn't call plays, I think he got a boost this year, frankly, by Joe Burrow getting hurt and by Jake Browning doing what he did. But just from everything you know of him, would that be to you an exciting hire for the Titans?
I think he is qualified for the job. And I think, he's got a history of working with some really good quarterbacks. He elevated an offense this year despite the quarterback going down. They've had their offensive line issues. That's for sure. How much of it is personnel? How much of it is scheme? And how do you get it fixed? You're talking about Munchak and his dad. Those are two ways, to certainly get it worked on. That's for sure. And I think that's one the fans like. I think he's got the pedigree. His dad being a former head coach, he's been in the NFL his whole life. So and it sounds like from some of the stories, the TD was telling me about the expectations and creating expectations with the organization. He knows how to command a group, and that's obviously important. And so I think, to me, I think he's the guy who's ready for the job, and it's just a matter if it's the Titans or someone else, and then we'll see how it goes.
Well, Corey, great stuff as always. You delivered as you always do. Thanks for being with us, and we'll talk to you next Monday.
Well, you're welcome. I apologize for whoever's next. I know it's an impossible bar to meet, so just tell John Glennon I'm sorry, and we'll move on.
Well, we need to get Glennon on soon. Talk more about Trey Avery. A lot of Trey Avery discussion we need to have.
By the way, congratulations, Joe. I know you've sworn off the Lions to us 1,000 times, but once a team is in your blood, it just doesn't go away.
That's right.
And so enjoy the moment. And you don't know. You just don't know. They won the division. They won a lot of games this year. How many 6 seeds have made it to the Super Bowl? A whole bunch.
I've got them winning. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you. I've got them winning coming up on Sunday. I really do.
Well, Corey, like I said earlier, Corey, then if you think it's really possible, I advise you to stock up on munitions and food and things because the apocalypse is coming.
See, it sounds like you're just, banging away at me that I'm stupid, but I know what you're really doing is protecting yourself.
Yes.
That's all that you're doing is protecting yourself. I'm not going to build myself up and allow myself to think that the Lions can win this game. I know what you're doing, and it's totally understandable. I totally get it.
Joey Rexo can't have his heart broken again. That's right.
That's right. That's right.
Well, he's probably going to, but that's okay. It's look,
oh man,
I think any of these 4 teams can win. I really do. We've seen. Look, the Ravens are good. They're really good, but we've seen Lamar have playoff stinkers before, and so he's got to win 2 more. And I'm not saying he can't. I'm just saying he's got that to prove. Mahomes is the only one out there who's got nothing to prove. Everybody else. And Purdy's got something to prove. Jared Goff, he's still wiping off the Rams discarding him. He's gone a long way, but he's got 2 more to go to get there. And so they've all got something to prove except for Mahomes.
Corey, thank you very much.
Enjoy your day, gang. Talk to you later.
All right, and Corey Curtis from News 2, our guest on Robbie and Rexo. We'll react to what Corey had to say there. Take your thoughts on divisional weekend in the NFL, the Titans head coaching search. We'll get into all that coming up next. You're listening to Robbie and Rex Road, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Hey, Robbie Stanley here, and if you've been watching the NFL playoffs from the sidelines, there's still time to get in the game with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. New customers bet this Sunday's conference championship games with $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. FanDuel's got so many different ways for you to pick up a W. We just talked about it with Corey. I'm taking the Lions to go on the road and win in San Francisco. I'm certainly taking them plus the 7 that's available right now, and I'll go with Baltimore to hold off Kansas City at home. Those are my picks. If you want to follow them, go to FanDuel right now. Get started with $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com/Rob to join today. That's FanDuel.com/Rob. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Must be 21 or older and present in Tennessee. First online real money wager only. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Got a gambling problem? Call the Tennessee Red Line at 1-800-889-9789. Welcome back in. Robbie and Rex Road, 1025, 1063 The Game, brought to you by Chuck McDowell Medical House Calls, Middle Tennessee's best medical care in the comfort and safety of your own home. For more information, go to medicalhousecalls.com. Medical House Calls, where the nearest clinic is your home. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexroad, Nick Keyser here with you. Thanks to Corey Curtis for being with us in the last segment. So, Joe, Brian Callahan, Bengals offensive coordinator, reportedly getting his second interview with the Titans today. We've seen Aaron Glenn and that speculation as to him being a strong candidate for the job. We talked about it earlier in the show. Ben Johnson has interviewed with the Seahawks and the Falcons and the Commanders and the Panthers. Pretty much every team that requested an interview with Ben Johnson, he has interviewed with to this point, except for the Tennessee Titans. And at the moment, at least publicly, there doesn't appear to be anything scheduled between Ben Johnson and the Titans. So, wrapping all those things together, Joe, what do you make of where the Titans coaching search currently stands as we enter into the week of conference championship week in the NFL?
Yeah, well, as Zach pointed out, we were talking about when they can interview, these guys who are still coaching. It is a week from today you can start. So, so you have that week now with, with Ben Johnson. I mean, you just discount Ben Johnson as a candidate. He's out of there. It's not they haven't had a first interview. So, so now they can't talk to him. They could talk to him first interview Monday, or obviously if the Lions win, they wouldn't even be able to do a first interview with him until after the Super Bowl. And obviously they'll have a coach hired by then. So however it worked out, why it happened, I don't know. But Ben Johnson, the request was made, and I don't think he's even going to interview with the Titans. A very interesting, kind of curious situation. It's hard for me to believe that the Titans would request him and then say, yeah, never mind. So I guess this means he declined. I guess. Right? So it's interesting.
Wild to me.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know he has got a ton of interest, and maybe, look, I mean, who knows? Maybe Ben Johnson was as down on Will Levis as anyone of all the coaches in the league last year. Just like, look, I'm just not taking the job, so why waste our time? I don't know, but just speculating. But it's weird to me. It's like, just it's these virtual Zoom interviews. You already have a whole bunch of them loaded up during a work week, which has to be tough, right? But anyway, he's going to be out of there, and I'm embracing my called shot here, which is, Thomas Brown coming in. And Thomas Brown, as I said last week, I think he's a legitimate candidate who at some point, I think is going to be a head coach in the NFL. It's trending that way, but he comes in for an in-person interview. You have now satisfied the Rooney Rule. Also, you may have interviewed, just like, the Falcons interviewing Vrabel, if they'd love to have this idea of Vrabel being the D coordinator for Belichick. You may have your OC for Brian Callahan. Now, Brian Callahan may have a completely different OC in mind. I don't know, but it would line up, and essentially it would be the same offense. Even though Thomas Brown didn't run that offense last year, it was Frank Reich. It was whatever the heck they were trying to do in Carolina under David Tepper.
A collaboration.
Yes.
As they say.
Amalgamation.
Yes. Well, I mean, obviously, Callahan's the one we know right now that has the second interview. So you have to think that Callahan is the favorite for the job. So I ask you what you just asked Corey Curtis. If it is Brian Callahan, given that he has not called plays, is that an exciting hire if you're a Tennessee Titans fan to end up with Brian Callahan as your head coach?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's an exciting hire in terms of, we've talked about the idea that an offensive head coach makes sense. He comes from the right tree. Again, again with him, it's a little different. I mean, he goes back to being with Kubiak. Of course, Mike Shanahan was the guy back in the day. He was the Niners OC. Then he was the Broncos head coach. He sort of had his own twist on the offense. That gets down to his son and McVay and all that stuff. But so he wasn't with McVay or Shanahan in either of those places, but he's got the Shanahan, like from the early days, influence, and Mike Shanahan, and he's got, of course, he's been with Zach Taylor, who's done very well in Cincinnati. I think he's obviously been a good OC. the play calling thing is a knock for sure. And again, I don't know, like, would Brian Callahan be a play calling head coach, or would he look to hire an offensive coordinator to be a traditional offensive coordinator and call plays? I don't know. But he probably is going to get someone also in that tree. And I just think it makes sense. It's the hit rate right now is high with those guys. And it's all about Will Levis. To me, you can get him back basically to the offense he was in. You know, the terminology changes a little bit with guys and all that, but Levis knows the offense. So you can go back to that, and I think you give yourself your best shot of developing Will Levis. It's still not going to matter if you don't get better players around him, but I think it would be exciting. I mean, I think it would be more exciting than any defensive coach hire. I know Mike McDonald's done a great job, and Aaron Glenn has done a good job with a very limited defensive roster in Detroit. Okay, they've both done a good job as D coordinators, but I think the offensive coach is more exciting.
I'm 100% with you. We'll continue the discussion on the Titans head coaching opening and divisional weekend in the NFL playoffs as well. Your thoughts on that? 615-737-1025, our phone number. 1025-1063, the game, officially inviting you to our first ever Super Saturday. Join us, come hungry on Saturday, February the 10th at New Heights Brewing for all the soup you can handle from some of the finest restaurants in Middle Tennessee. Bring the family and enjoy delicious soup, live music, games for the kids, and more. It's our first ever Super Saturday benefiting the Nashville Predators Foundation. More details coming, including on how to purchase tickets as well. So make sure you're tuned in for that. This is Robbie and Rex Road, 1025-1063, the game. Welcome back in, Robbie and Rex Road, 1025, 1063 The Game. I got some tickets to give away, a pair of tickets to see Stained with special guest Seether at First Bank Amphitheater coming up on Tuesday, April 23rd. Be caller 5, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Caller 5 will win a pair of tickets to see Stained with special guest Seether at First Bank Amphitheater coming up on Tuesday, April 23rd, 615-737-1025. Outdoor concert season in April, which Joe Rexroad is a big fan of. Big fan of the outdoor concert.
Oh man, can't wait. I would at this point, I would go for an outdoor concert if we heat up to like 38 degrees. That would sound amazing right now. I'd go
Dude,
I'd go outside with shirtless. I'd go Jason Kelsey for it.
I'm not kidding you. I was walking around yesterday, got outside. It was 30 degrees, and I was like, it feels great. It feels awesome out here. That's where we are.
I know. It's awful. It's just like, I know. I mean, like in Michigan in the winter, it's like, ooh, we're heating up into the 20s today. Oh, come on. We do not need that life here. And we need this to end today.
I think it finally is today. I think so. We'll see what happens.
6
on
straight
that.
days, no school for the kids. 6 straight days.
I got a texter that says, can we dive into the Rooney Rule a little bit? Everything I'm seeing shows you interview one minority candidate in person. Why is everyone saying 2? I could be wrong, but let's clarify this. So, Joe, what's your understanding of where the Titans currently stand with the Rooney Rule, which, by the way, an interview with David Shaw was completed last night. So that was in person. David Shaw completed, former Stanford head coach. And where do the Titans go from here on that front?
Yeah, but I mean, I guess I could try to pull it up on the interwebs too, but my understanding is 2 in person. That's what we've been operating on. I mean, I'll sit here and try to find it. They did change it. Was that last, or maybe 2 years ago? Was it last year or 2 years ago that they?
I think it was last year.
Changed it?
I don't know.
Was it last year? Yeah. So no, I believe it's 2 in person. We'll make sure before the show ends to absolutely nail that down for you. But yes, so I believe it is 2. I'm 99% sure.
I got another texter asking about Ben Johnson and why they haven't had a virtual interview with him. We've talked about that in terms of what that could possibly mean. I do think you're right on that front, though. Like at this point, based on the timing of it, you can just pretty much eliminate Ben Johnson as a candidate for the Tennessee Titans job. He's going to end up somewhere, probably either Washington or Carolina, if I had to guess. But I think you can eliminate him for the Tennessee Titans.
Yep. So you can't, at some point you got to pare down your search. And again, if it was just as simple as he said, no, thanks. Well, then there you go. That's very easy for you.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know what else it would be. I mean, why would you request someone and then not follow through? Why would you not want to interview Ben Johnson? You certainly value interviewing him. So you move on. There are plenty of other candidates.
Joe, what did you make of divisional weekend? So Saturday you had Houston and Baltimore, tie game at the half. Then Baltimore comes out and looks dominant in the second half. You had just a heartbreaker for my beloved Green Bay Packers Saturday night against San Francisco. They lose 24-21. Yesterday, the Lions punched their ticket to the NFC Championship game against Tampa Bay. And then a thriller last night between the Bills and the Chiefs. It seems like every time those two teams play that it's an awesome game. But Buffalo misses a field goal wide right. The Scott Norwood references were out of control after that last night. And Kansas City again, which is one of the most incredible stats, I think, in the history of sports. When you think about it, Patrick Mahomes has been to the AFC title game at least in every year that he's been a starter. It's unreal.
No, it really is. And we're talking with quite a few changes around him. They've had bad offensive lines, good offensive lines. I mean, he got him to the Super Bowl somehow the year they lost to Brady with a really deficient offensive line. He's got him to the title game this year with an absolutely deficient receiving core. I mean, not only did they had a chance to clinch the game, jump on the fumble. It looked like it was going to be one of those receivers costing them the game by fumbling out of the end zone at the half-yard line. So for him to just, I mean, he's on track to be the GOAT. That's just, I don't know. I mean, I guess I have a hard time buying that he's going to have as many rings as Brady, but to me, if he's going to keep playing like this and he's got a couple more in him, then I think he's the best quarterback I've ever seen. You know, he just yesterday in that weather, in that stadium with those receivers, some of the throws he made, plays he made, unbelievable, man.
You're just dismissal of Tom Brady so quickly. It's just amazing.
I said Tom Brady's the GOAT. What do you want from me?
Beat Mahomes in a Super Bowl, beat Mahomes in a conference title game. I'm just messing with you.
Well,
It
he's
is-
not yet. He's not the GOAT yet.
It's incredible to watch, but they punched their ticket again. And look, man, that the Baltimore Kansas City matchup is going to be awesome. And we spent a lot of time talking about the Lions and Niners today for obvious reasons, but the Ravens Chiefs matchup is going to be insane. And Lamar Jackson, he played great the other day in the second half, especially against Houston. You know, there's obviously the playoff question with him, but that team is loaded and they're at home. And then you've got Kansas City coming in on the road, and it just feels like until they lose in the playoffs, it's hard to imagine them losing in the playoffs, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Well, and you know, they had a rough year, just like the Bills did, and they figured it out, and they both are right there, both good enough to be in the Super Bowl. I would never say that the Chiefs are playing with house money. I mean, this is every year. The expectation is that they're going to be here, right? But there's so much more pressure on Lamar Jackson in this game than Patrick Mahomes, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah.
If the Chiefs lose, it's like, look, they screwed up. They should have signed DeAndre Hopkins. They didn't give him enough, and it just wasn't good enough. And they'll be back. You know that. Lamar Jackson, you know, I've always been a believer in him going back to Louisville that he would be a good NFL quarterback, and I think he's a great player. But he needs this. They got a chance at home to do this and get in the Super Bowl. I thought he was great the other day. He didn't have gaudy numbers, but the combination of running and passing, he was lethal. I mean, and I thought overall he played extremely well, threw the ball extremely well. There's a ton of pressure on him and the Ravens, you know, to get there with him, because there's still people like, that kind of offense doesn't work, even though, again, they've changed the offense this year too. But there's more pressure on them for sure, and I'm fascinated by that game.
Well, and then there's the Lions taking down Tampa Bay, and then San Francisco squeaking by the Packers. I did think San Francisco looked a little rusty. Brock Purdy threw 2 balls that should have been picked off in that game that were just dropped by Packers defenders. He did step up on the final drive, made some big throws, made one big scramble down to the 6-yard line. So he did make some plays in the game. I will say this, though, like San Francisco is going to have to play much better than they did against Green Bay, in my opinion, if they're going to beat Detroit. I said it, and I'm sticking with it all week. Detroit is going to win the game. They are going on the road, and they are taking down the 49ers. I'll say it.
Okay, well, you'll say it.
I'll
I
say
won't. No, they could, and they could. That was not San Francisco's best. Now, I think that the Packers deserve credit for that. You know, they
played really well for the most part.
They did. And really, again, and I hate to, bring this up because I know you've been kind of dealing with the loss, but look, you make a couple simple plays in that game if you're the Packers, and it doesn't come down to that at the end,
Agreed.
And it's Packers Lions in Detroit this week, which would be wild. We would have to do a remote up there. But I also think the Niners can play a lot better than that. So now Deebo Samuel, I think, could be the difference maker in that game. He just is as great as they are with McCaffrey and all their other weapons on the outside. And Juwan Jennings is playing great, by the way.
He did.
Deebo going full Deebo and all the different things you can do with him. That's what makes him so tough to deal with. So I don't like the Lions defense in that matchup at all, but there's more pressure on the Niners as well. And the whole world is rooting for the Lions. And so hopefully we got 2 classics here.
I saw Juwan Jennings get in a scrap on the sideline with the Packers. And the first thing I thought of was like Jim Wyatt wanted to wring your neck about the column you wrote between Tennessee and Vanderbilt and Juwan Jennings. It was beautiful.
Jimmy Wyatt was screaming at his TV the other day, weren't you, Jimmy? Let's ask him.
I've seen this before. I've seen this before.
That is amazing that nothing was called on that play. Like they were, on somebody, right? Like beating the crap out of each other like 10 seconds after the whistle.
It's a full-on scrap on the sideline. Just nothing called on that play. 615-737-1025, our phone number. Coming up next, it's time for Preds Pick to Click. Be the first caller at 615-737-1025. If you guess a goal scorer for the Predators tonight, you want a pair of tickets to a future Nashville Predators home game. We'll do that coming up next. Give our final thoughts on this weekend of football as well. This is Robbie and Rex Road, 1025, 1063, The Game.
It's time for Preds Picks to Click.
And a shot of the score.
Do you think you know who will score a goal in tonight's Predators game?
Little give and go.
Shoot your shot for a chance to win Preds tickets. Call 615-737-1025 now. Pick to Click is brought to you by TJ Anderson Homes of Benchmark Realty. Visit tjandersonhomes.com to see why they are preferred so often. It's Pick to Click, now on Robbie and Rex Road.
It is that time of the day, time for Preds Pick to Click on Robbie and Rex Road, presented by TJ Anderson Homes of Benchmark Realty. List your home with TJ to get your home seen, heard, and sold. Preds back in action tonight, taking on the Florida Panthers at home. Puck drop 7 o'clock, pregame 6 o'clock here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Joe Rexrode is taking the lead in the competition with 12 correct answers. The listeners in second place with 11. Nick Keyser with 7. And I remain at 3 correct answers. With that in mind, let's go back to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in Rick. Rick, good morning. Thanks for calling in. Who is your pick to click tonight for the Nashville Predators?
Hi, good morning. I'm going with Philip Forsberg. He hasn't scored in a couple of games. It's about due.
He feels like he's due. Rick, thanks for the call. Appreciate it. Forsberg has been off the board, so we'll see if he puts one in the back of the net tonight. Forsberg off the board. Nick Keyser, you're up first today. Forsberg off, your pick to click for the Predators.
Yeah, I tell you what, I'm going to go with Ryan O'Reilly. He scored last time that we had Preds pick to click, and I'm feeling good about it.
He did. I'll go Nyquist. I think Nyquist finds the back of the net tonight. So Forsberg, O'Reilly, Nyquist, the entire first line off the board. Joe Rexrode, your pick to click.
You know, part of dominating this competition has been being kind of obvious with the picks, you know, and basically whenever I pick someone, they're probably going to score that night. I think Colton Sissons is going to score tonight. How about that?
I like it. Colton Sissons, Forsberg, O'Reilly, Nyquist, and Sissons. The selections today and Preds pick to click, brought to you by TJ Anderson Homes of Benchmark Realty. Big one tonight for the Preds. They lose a tough one on Saturday in Arizona, taking on one of the league's best teams tonight, at least in my opinion, in the Florida Panthers. We'll see how they can handle this matchup. And again, puck drop 7 o'clock, pregame 6 o'clock here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Joe, your final thoughts on divisional weekend leading into conference championship weekend, the Detroit Lions, the darling of the NFL, America's team, as we head into conference championship weekend. And I'm looking forward to it.
Yep. It's been fun. It's been a ton of fun for sure. So, I mean, it's you got to give a lot of credit. We made a lot of fun of Dan Campbell, you know.
We did.
He said he's keeping receipts, so I wonder if at some point he'd be like, radio idiots too, you know. Dan
He's
Campbell,
welcome to come on the program and discuss.
He is. We'd love to have Dan C on the program, but he's good. I mean, look, Dan Campbell, as the Titans here I'll tie it to the Titans. Dan Campbell never been a coordinator, right? Now, he obviously is good at picking coaches. That's a huge part of this, hiring good staff. But he is the total example of the motivator, energy CEO, get good people doing the work for you. And by the way, even Ben Johnson, I mean, he was not on the track to be an OC. And then Anthony Lynn, he took play calling away from him and he gave it to Ben Johnson. And all of a sudden it's like, wow, this kid's really good. But my point is, Dan Campbell did not have this traditional coordinator track or anything like that, and it's worked out pretty well with him. Now, Brad Holmes is a good GM too. Brad Holmes has done a great job of picking players. But I'm just saying, there's a lot of different ways to have success. But it's been a ton of fun to see this. I think it probably ends Sunday. And I'm not just saying that to reverse jinx it or troll anyone. It's just I think the Niners are the best team in the NFC. And when they play their best, they are the best team. But, hey, man, it's going to be fun to watch. I'll tell you that.
I have seen a lot of this from Titans fans. Basically the idea that Dan Campbell is what the Titans hoped Mike Vrabel would. Playoffs the first 2 years he was the head coach with a terrible roster, mind you. And they've done a great job of building that up. And now he's in a conference championship game, which Mike Vrabel has also gotten to. We'll wait and see where it goes from here.
Right. Mike Vrabel has gotten this far. Mike Vrabel has also gotten the number 1 seed and been the NFL Coach of the Year. Mike Vrabel has missed the playoffs with bad players. Dan Campbell has also missed the playoffs with bad players. So coaching is hugely important. There is no doubt about it. it is not as important as players. It is about who is on the field playing the game. And you have limitations as a coach. You can only do so much to do more with less. And you can only do so much to screw it up if you got great players. So that's a good always lesson about this game.
Do we think that Brian Callahan is offered the Titans job at some point this week, given the fact that at the moment he is the only one with a second interview?
I think today we will hear about Thomas Brown getting a second in-person interview.
Okay.
And I believe that after that, I think that they will offer Brian Callahan the job. And I think that possibly Thomas Brown as OC materializes. I'll just call the shot. Brian Callahan with Thomas Brown as OC. That's my called shot this week. This is the news we get this week.
Okay. That would be very interesting. Brian Callahan obviously has been interviewed with other teams as well. So we'll see what that part of it looks like. If Brian Callahan ends up being the hire, I think that's a good job by the Titans. I think that that's an exciting hire. You mentioned the offensive side of things. I've said it all along. Ben Johnson's my first choice. That doesn't look like that's happening for the Tennessee Titans, but Brian Callahan, I think, would be a good hire. And then it's all about the players you pick this offseason. So we'll see what Rand Carthon can do on that front. But we've talked about Levis a lot today and the quarterbacks in the AFC, and playoffs continue to be a reminder, Joe, of you're going up against some pretty darn good quarterbacks in this conference that you got to compete with year in and year out. And they're all in their 20s too, which is also great.
Well, exactly. So, you hope that Will Levis becomes that guy, becomes someone who's a peer of them and is right there with them. He won't unless you give him an offensive line and some receivers beyond DeAndre Hopkins. But you obviously hope. Speaking of quarterbacks, real quick, today, possibly huge news here and in Knoxville. George McIntyre, Brentwood Academy, 5-star, number 8 overall player per 24/7. I think he's picking the Vols today. And that would be another huge quarterback recruit for Josh Heupel.
That does it for us today. Chasing Big Joe coming up next. You're listening to 102.5, 106.3, The Game.